That works fine. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dev Group Conversation. Today is June 23rd, 2020, and Sid, looks like you've got the first question.
Sid, I think you're on.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that, Wayne. Yeah, thanks. Also, just want to mention, yesterday was release day, and again, we shipped a whole lot of features, and I think to a very positive reception. So I'm very proud of what we're getting done here. I was interested in slide 19. It shows that Silver has more people with SAML enabled than Gold, but Gold has fewer people. Is that because SAML is a feature? I think actually SAML is an open source feature for GitLab. So I kind of wonder how that works.
Yeah.
So the question is, why is Gold lower than Silver?
Yeah, on a percentage basis. Yeah, because you would think, right, Gold typically are larger enterprise customers, most likely utilizing some sort of SAML authentication. And so you're seeing, like, just to call out, right, Silver is about 15% of groups are utilizing some sort of SAML auth, and Gold is around 9%. So I'm going to kick it to Jeremy, who probably can answer a little bit more intelligently than I can.
Yeah, thanks for the great question. I think that this is something that we've been thinking about as well. And I think the leading hypothesis is that since Gold is more expensive on a per seat basis, it kind of tends to attract larger groups are more interested in Silver, since many of the SAML capabilities in GitLab.com start at the Silver level. So if you're a larger group and looking to adopt GitLab.com, the price point is a little bit lower, especially for larger groups at that tier.
So my assumption that SAML is part of open source. Some of SAML is open source, but some of it is proprietary.
So all of SAML is currently in the Silver, if you would like to use it on GitLab.com.
Okay. Thanks for that. So yeah, then it makes sense that Silver has a high utilization, because people go especially to Silver because it's the first tier that offers it. That makes sense.
I do think it's a great point for us to have some parity there, and we definitely have an issue, and we're considering moving SAML, like basic SAML for GitLab.com, down into the free plan to kind of remove some of those barriers and get to parity from self-managed to GitLab.com. But at the moment,
it's different for .com and self-managed.
That's correct.
Okay, that's interesting.
And the reason for that is that GitLab.com, the major kind of driver was kind of enterprise adoption for improving our SAML capabilities on GitLab.com. So we wanted to start in higher tier and then consider moving that down over time as those capabilities developed. And we may be at that point to be where we would offer basic SAML capabilities kind of in free tiers for GitLab.com, but the more advanced enterprise capabilities like SCIM auto provisioning in Silver tiers.
Okay, thanks for that.
Cool, thanks for the question.
All right, Tim, you've got the next one.
Yes, now I'm verbalizing finally my icebreaker question. I'm telling every time, Eric, that I have an icebreaker question conserved, and I'm pretty sure he was always waiting for that. So, Eric, you as a user, what would be something you would love to see? A feature improvement, UI improvement, one tiny thing that you would implement yourself if you have any technical skill that that is needed for that? What would that be?
That is a great question. I'm going to share my screen real quick, because my answer last group conversation would have actually been answered in a different way, because I want to just highlight something very quickly that was shipped recently, which is a dark mode for the entire application. So I don't know if you caught this, but we now actually have a dark mode for the entire GitLab application. And this is obviously an alpha version, but this is a really cool feature that I'm excited to hear. And so I would have said this last group conversation. Since this is now part of the product, what I'll answer is I would love to see merge request comments in the web IDE as I am reviewing a merge request that has a diff. So I want to be able to make changes and like work through comments essentially like in a list via an MR as I'm like combing a diff, so that I can just quickly see the changes, make the changes, and then see merge request feedback right there. So that's probably the thing that I would add. Thanks for asking the question.
Cool, thanks. I think the next question is going in my direction. What are the plans to get the MR rate above 10? What we have done, especially over the course of the last 5 months, was we took, especially per team, a very deep look on where we are with the MR rate on each team's individual level, and tried to figure out what are things that we can improve and make actionable per team. And to some extent, it was very different per team. It totally depended on the area, on how long the members are around, if we need additional training, if we need to have more mentorship. Sometimes the review times were too long if we didn't have a maintainer in the team. So we were taking different actions on each of the teams. And now we have something that in dev that we are currently trying out since that, which we call the dev throughput log, where we basically put down, every manager goes in after each month and writes down, hey, we have increased the rate or it went down, and basically sets up, hey, yeah, just 3 people were out on holiday, or we had a problem where we went down a rabbit hole, and then we are trying to digest internally in the dev area to figure out, okay, what are things that other teams can learn from another team, and set again actionable items per team. And that is something we are trying to review. Overall, what we have also seen is that the pipeline times is definitely something in the teams that we have that are very in itself and have very short pipeline times, like the Git team and the Git lead teams. They have a much easier time having fast iteration and having really more MRs. So that is also something we are trying to improve as much as we can and help on a global level to get pipeline times down so that it feels more iterative, to just not fire and forget. I'm sending my change and the next time I will take a look at it is tomorrow, because I know it will take some time. And we have some people who are looking at RSpec tests. We have some people looking at Jest tests and really trying to improve all the tooling also there internally in the team, and figuring out what are things that we can improve per team. So depending
Thanks for that.
on that.
All right, Scott, you've got the next one.
Yeah, so GitLab has its own own terminology. It doesn't always map directly to something like Agile Scrum, which lots of other companies use. And I know we're doing lots of things to try to make it easier to map GitLab to teams that use different methodologies. Can you help me understand where we are in that journey?
Yep. I'll let Gabe answer unless he's not on the call. I see him typing.
Yeah, he's here.
I'm here.
Great.
One of the first things that we're doing is shipping iterations in 13.2. This is a different form of time box where you can create iterations at the group level, and then more or less the iteration report cascades down to any subgroups or teams. This is the start of then being able to calculate team velocity or group velocity, which is in number of weight delivered over a previous number of iterations. And so that's like a very common use case for the basis of Scrum. And because we already have milestones which can act as program increments in SAFe, you will now have everything you need within GitLab sans Epic boards to fully practice SAFe in GitLab. I don't think we're going to align our language within the product around SAFe. We want to continue to keep it flexible and extensible to support and be inclusive of all methodologies. But I think that's the start. And then after we get to that point, we'll start integrating analytics into issue boards as well. and kind of moving in that direction. But I think we're pretty close to being there. And once we have good support for time-boxed planning methodologies, which represent largely about 75% of how teams, the methodologies that teams use, we'll move over to introducing better support for Kanban. So I think we have a good strategy. We just need to execute on it now.
Great. Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, there's one other thing I'd like to point out too, and Gabe's done a lot of great work here on thinking about kind of the onboarding of someone into a new project. And so that can be like one of the first questions you ask when you either make a board or make a project, like what kind of methodology does your team work in? And then if, depending on their answer, set up essentially all of the labels, all of the boards that you would need so it just kind of works out of the box. We've made a change. I announced it on the 13 to kickoff to put the default board list there. Right now you get asked a question, which is a little bit silly. So we're going to just have a simple Kanban board, but I think over time what we'll do is iterate to have optional templates that you can say, like, I'm using Safe, or I'm using Agile, I'm using Scrum or Lean or whatever, and then just have everything pre-populated. And this is something that is pretty prevalent in a lot of our competing products.
Love it. Thanks.
One more thing to add there too is we do have an active working group exploring how to simplify groups and projects and make them more extensible to different things, whether you want it to be a team, whether you want to be just issue tracking or design management or wiki or all of things together, and making it easy to share resources across siblings a little bit so that you can have like a team hierarchy and a project or a repo hierarchy. And I think that is going to also lead to a lot of UX improvements, especially for the folks that are less technical that we want to onboard to GitLab. So I'm excited about that as well.
Thanks, Gabe.
All right, Sid, back over to you.
Yeah, love the work on startup.js and preloading REST calls. Do we need to go further? Do we need server-side rendering to match the speed of GitHub, or how we're feeling on kind of the timeline to get there?
A good question, and something we dove already into in the past, but I would love to have Roman also voice his comment right there. Yes, this is right on point to some extent. Roman, are you around?
Sure. Joel, yeah, server-side rendering sounds like super exciting, and everybody's talking about it as like the great savior. So I think like our application is like not built for doing this and leveraging it in this way, just because like we use Rails, and Rails kind of does kind of like server-side rendering anyway. And if we want to kind of like fully go to server-side rendering approach with Node.js or so, we throw a whole new level of complexity and technology into the mix.
That makes sense.
Probably makes it super hard for us to maintain long-term. And yeah, it's probably not worth it for us to invest in this.
That makes a ton of sense. So that's why we're, but do we think there's other ways to kind of match the speed that GitHub has on their service?
Yes, we believe that there are, especially around the low-hanging fruits that Lucas mentioned there. There are tons of things, but I call them a cable box situations to some extent, which is like you try to pull out of a box full of cables one cable and you get 20 others with it. And now we are needing to basically untangle all the 20 ones. Startup.js, the concept, as I also sometimes call it, is the poor man's version of server-side rendering, as it simply moves the startup time to the beginning. Also gives us the advantage of not running also again into server-side rendering problems, because first of all, the main argument, as Roman mentioned, is really the complexity on infrastructure, on all topics, testing in multiple environments, in multiple types, huge complexities. But the other topic is also that we were able to remove some of the synchronous that we had, especially, for example, on the file tree view, by rendering it in Vue so that you have an instant page. And now we simply need to make it faster, that we load stuff faster, that the JavaScript package is smaller, that the CSS package is getting smaller. And we are really trying to, on all corners, we have people currently working on reducing the JavaScript, reducing the CSS, and really working on root-specific stuff. File tree view, very trivial thing, but I think it will make a huge difference. It's simply that we render the loading state that we have in the Vue application already in Hammer, because then it looks like the same. You don't have the layer pushes. The browser doesn't need to push stuff around. It already looks like something is happening right from the start and then not popping up. And that already should give us also a nice perceived performance. But overall, I think there are still tons of low-hanging fruits, which simply take some time to get through them one by one. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's really great. And I think that's the way forward. And I'm glad we're not falling into the trap of going for like a holy grail. While the real improvement is looking at the details for everything and just having a simple basic thing. Just one thing about language, and it's a really trivial one, but we're trying to not use the poor man's version. It's not inclusive because it's male, but it's also it's a bit of talking about people have less money as being second class, which is also not great. So I don't have a great alternative for it, because I'm going to hear what you have to say. Rudimentary or hobby would be ways to phrase it. Although hobby is kind of a positive thing in my view as well, but a rudimentary version or something like that.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting the boring solution. Perhaps is also the
yeah, I think we can be proud of it. I'm actually super excited to see that we aren't doing an 8-month project to do server-side rendering and discover in 6 months in that all the maintenance and the malleability of our code are going to get way worse, but that we're doing very simple things that have a lot of effect. I think we should be very proud of the direction. Very well done.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
So if I may just add one more thought here, I think it's important for us to understand what this means is that directly comparing what we do in our site without server-side rendering to a solution who does server-side rendering, some initial metrics like first time to render, those will always look slightly worse. But performance doesn't end when the page loads. Like for example, a lot of stuff happens on the merge request after the merge request is loaded. So we're looking into improvements on that section as well, not just on the rendering of the app, but how it feels after you've used it. So it's not a silver bullet for sure. My colleagues very eloquently explained the hurdles, but we're looking at it to deeply understand the cost of it, how that will look for infrastructure, and to see if it's worth even considering it. But so I don't think we've discarded it completely. We're doing our due diligence, make sure to see how that solution would look. So there's a merge request that Phil pushed so that we can try it out and see the impact of it. But as everyone's put out, we're definitely exploring the other routes.
Thanks for that. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And thanks for adding that. Again, the small thing about language, and these are hard because silver bullet was immediately what came to mind, but silver bullet and lots of lead bullets, it's kind of a violent analogy. So best I could come up with in this call is a holy grail. I'm
100%. Thanks.
I assume that's not offensive. Thanks. Just want to say I'm super excited about all of this, and it's super exciting to see GitLab get faster. And we shouldn't try to like do exactly what GitHub did. It just needs to feel fast, and we're making a ton of progress. So I'm super proud.
Okay, if there are no more questions, then I suppose we can give everyone 5 minutes back. Thank you all for a great group conversation. Bye.
Thanks.